It's the 16th century, and you're screwed. You've just been born a girl in Salem. Not Jerusalem, but Salem, Massachusetts. But with how much the name Jesus gets passed around here, it's close enough. Your grandparents came over on the Mayflower, so your family gets to look down the noses at everyone else. Lucky you. Psych! I'm joking. Nobility doesn't exist here. Only survival, prayer, and suspicion. A last name that arrived on the Mayflower just means you'll be remembered longer when they accuse you of dancing with Satan. Your childhood is dirt floors and cold winters, church sermons that last longer than your patience, and whispers about smallpox spreading like smoke through the colony. When the pox doesn't get you, it gets your neighbors. So death is just another piece of household furniture. You learn quickly not to smile too wide. People already call you spirited. That's not a compliment. A few years pass, and you turn 5. Welcome to the world of judgmental neighbors. You don't sew straight. You laugh too loud. You slip out of church some evenings to watch the trees instead of the pulpit. You think the sermons are boring. Every little quirk turns into a rumor. The minister says rebellion is the devil's seed. Salem's children memorize that line before they can spell their names. And yet, you keep sneaking glances at the world beyond the church windows, wondering if life has more to offer than pews and plows. Your parents dote on you more than the neighbors think proper. They let you keep a black kitten that curls at your feet when you study. They even let you read more books than the Bible. You read of lady adventures that sail across oceans. You read about powerful female rulers like Queen Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots. You even read The Secrets of Isabella Cortese, a medical journal by Italian alchemist Isabella Cortese. Everyone else mutters, a woman with ideas is dangerous. Still, for now, you're just a strange girl with freckles, a stubborn streak, and dreams of worlds beyond Salem. Not a witch. At least, not yet. But in Salem, the difference is just a spark waiting for dry tinder. And this village is already bone dry. Congratulations, you're now 14. Growing up in Salem, you notice how quickly girls disappear. One season, they're chasing you through orchards. The next, they're carrying babies on their hips, tied to husbands twice their age. Childhood here has an expiration date, and it runs out fast. You cling stubbornly to your independence. You love the orchard, the stubborn chickens that peck at your skirts, the woods that breathe with more honesty than the meeting house. You'd rather climb a tree and scrape your knee than embroider a sampler with perfect scripture. The minister calls that unladylike. Your neighbors call it trouble. You just call it living. Some of your childhood friends don't forgive you for it. Ann Putnam, 5 years older, already a victim of early marriage, was once your companion. You played together. Well, until the line between children blurred into the line between women. Anne grew jealous of your little rebellions, the way you lingered in the fields while she was learning to curtsy and serve. You once tied her bonnet to a tree branch as a prank. She laughed then, but later she would not. By the time she was betrothed, the teasing had curdled into grudges. Anne carried those grudges well into her marriage, watching you with the eyes of someone cataloging every future accusation. Still, you never think much of it. You have bigger concerns. Sermons thunder of Satan's snare, while smallpox sweeps through town like a thief in the night. You see schoolmates vanish into graves before they had the chance to become brides. You cough at night and wonder if it was just dust or the devil's punishment. And yet you survive. You learn to nod politely when the minister glares at your absence in prayer meetings, even as you slip away to walk the woods. Your parents even let you keep your dolls while you read. Neighbors whisper, of course. Dolls and cats were bad omens in Salem. A girl with too much freedom, too much joy, looks suspicious by default. But for now, you are still just the strange one. And in Salem, strange doesn't stay harmless for long. For the rest of your adolescence, you live a stress-free life. But that is all about to end. Because just when you turn 20, tragedy strikes. For days now, your parents have been wasting away in their own bed, their lungs drowned in blood and fluid. Tuberculosis, they whisper. Consumption. A slow, cruel thief that steals not just breath, but dignity. You sit at their bedside, spooning broth, holding their hands until they fall limp. By the end of winter, you are alone in a house far too large, with land far too tempting for Salem's hungry eyes. Overnight, you become marriage material. Not because you're beautiful, though some say you are in that unkempt, sunburnt way, but because you hold land, fields, chickens, orchards. And in Salem, a woman with land is a prize. Or a problem. Scratch that. In Salem, anyone that doesn't conform to the majority is a problem. First up, Ann Putnam's brother comes first, his voice oily with false courtesy. He wants to marry you, he suggests. A neat solution. You keep your house, they keep your land. Forever. You laugh, thinking it a joke. Then realize his eyes are deadly serious. You decline. Politely at first, then firmly. He insists. You refuse again. Days later, the minister arrives at your door, Bible in hand. He speaks of a woman's place of obedience, of how Eve fell because she thought she could stand alone. You listen, face blank, fingers petting the cat at your feet. Inside, you burn. Religion never gripped you, not the way it grips others, and that alone sets you apart. But you're not the only one Salem eyes with suspicion. You notice Sarah Good, the town's beggar, begging scraps at the meeting house. Tituba, the minister's slave, whispers Caribbean stories the children repeat in secret. Rebecca Nurse, old and frail, moves like a shadow through town, her family accused of boundary disputes and grudges. These are women marked as different, inconvenient, or simply unlucky. And you feel yourself sliding into their company. Neighbors whisper louder now when you pass. Ann Putnam, now a wife and mother, sneers at your independence. The grudge she nursed since childhood festers in her eyes. You recall the prank you once pulled, tying her bonnet to a branch. Harmless then. But in Salem, every memory can sour into evidence. You tend to your land as best you can, stubborn against their advances, but you feel the weight of their stares. A single woman with property, without husband, without piety, is Salem's favorite kindling, and the fire is coming. It is January 1692, when you hear the first shrieks drifting through the frozen air. Reverend Parris's daughter Betty and niece Abigail had a nightmare crying that witches clawed them in the night. Word spreads faster than the pox ever did. By the time it reaches your ears, the tale is twisted into proof Satan is walking in Salem. You want to laugh. Children's games, you tell yourself. But then you hear the rest. Tituba, Parris's slave, has confessed. You hear tales of flying spirits, the devil's book, witches cavorting in the dark. Whether she was beaten into it or forced by fear, you do not know. You only know her words are a match tossed into dry grass, and the village is already burning. You watch neighbors dragged to jail. Rebecca Nurse, a grandmother who hums psalms in her garden. Sarah Good, a poor woman begging for scraps. Sarah Osborne, sick, accused for marrying against the town's wishes. 3 women gone, and you know the crowd only hungers for more. Soon the finger points to you. That freckle you were born with? Satan's brand. The chamomile tea you brewed for Goody Proctor's cough. A curse that killed her cow. The cat who naps on your lap. A demon familiar. Even your scorched bread for the meeting house is whispered to be the devil's loaf. You see Ann Putnam Sr.'s lips curl. Her daughter Ann Jr. swears that your ghost chokes her in the night. And her brother? Well, he comes again with marriage offers. smiling as if salvation lies in surrender. You say no again. Not too much later, you're hauled in chains to the meeting house. The floor creaks beneath you. The girl's already shrieking before you open your mouth. The trial begins with a touch test. One of the girls collapses the instant you brush her sleeve. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Witchcraft confirmed. Then comes the witch cake, baked from rye in a sick child's urine, fed to a dog. The poor mutt twitches, sneezes, and that's enough. You're a witch. Spectral evidence follows like theater. They claim your shadow flew through windows, pinched their skin, rode them like beasts. You weren't there, but absence is the strongest proof in Salem. The Putnam's not, faces hard with piety. But you see the glint. Not faith, greed. They want your fields. Back in jail, the stench welcomes you. Straw damp with piss, walls sweating mold. Every prayer you whisper sounds too rehearsed. Every silence, defiant. Rebecca Nurse hums a psalm beside you, her calm almost unbearable. She believes God listens. You've stopped believing. The names of the condemned echo through the cells like bells tolling. You remember Bridget Bishop, bright ribbons on her bodice, too much laughter for Puritan taste. You bought cider from her once. Now she hangs at Gallows Hill. Sarah Osborne, sickly and bent, who rarely left her bed. You heard she died shackled in this very jail before a rope could claim her. George Burroughs, the minister who once led prayer as strong as thunder. They say he recited the Lord's Prayer perfectly on the ladder, something witches can't do. They still hanged him anyway. Giles Corey, crushed with stones. You never spoke with him, but you heard the guards murmur his last words. More weight. Brave, stubborn fool. Only crime was refusing to plead. You look at Susanna Martin, once sharp-tongued, now hollow-eyed. At Elizabeth Howe, who only ever smiled kindly when your paths crossed. Both condemned, both branded Satan's brides. Beside you, Elizabeth Proctor swells with child, her belly pressing against iron bars. Her husband, John Proctor, is already hanged. His crime? Spoke against the witch hunt. And then little Dorcas Good, 4 years old, shackled like you. She whimpers for her mother, Sarah Good, who spits curses through broken teeth. You see Dorcas tracing her tiny fingers on the wall, whispering about a black dog the girls forced her to imagine. Chains bite her wrists raw, yet Salem calls her dangerous. The jail thins with each execution. More empty straw, more silence. The air grows heavy with rot and ghosts. You watch the jail thin out. Less laughter, less breathing, more empty straw where someone once lay. When you're led back to the courtroom for sentencing, you already know the verdict. Guilty. Not because of devils or spells, but because you're inconvenient. Because you said no. Because you never prayed loud enough. Now all that's left is to wait. A few days later, you're escorted to Gallows Hill. The crowd gathers to watch you swing. You look at their faces, hoping to see a kind face. The only thing you see is condemnation from people you called neighbors. From friends, you see shame. Even they are scared to speak out. John and George were already examples enough. Finally, you're asked to confess one last time. You want to do so. You really want to live. But then you wonder if you can still live among them, if things will ever go back to normal. You think of the heroines in your books. Would they cave? So you remain defiant, refusing to bend. Soon, you feel the rope snap your neck on Gallows Hill. You gasp for breath as your face turns blue. Your legs move, hoping to catch stable footing. Soon, they stop. You stop. And your story ends here. No ballad for you. No legacy. Just silence where your orchard once stood. Whispers of those who survived lingers in Salem, but survival is not mercy. Elizabeth Proctor lives, but only because she's carrying life inside her. Her newborn dies in prison, the gift Salem gave for her reprieve. Little Dorcas Good, barely 5, leaves jail, but not her mind. They say she mutters to herself, still haunted by the black dog the court made her invent. Her mother's curses at the scaffold echo longer than her body swinging. But curses can't tend to her daughter. The rest are ash in memory. Rebecca Nurse, George Burroughs, Bridget Bishop, all gone. Their families left to tend to their wounds. And the accusers? They grow old and pious. Years later, Ann Putnam Jr. stands in church, voice shaking with rehearsed repentance, apologizing for delusions of the devil. By then, half of Salem's innocents are in the ground. Cotton Mather, who insisted on George Burroughs' execution, prints another sermon, never chained for his role. The magistrates mutter errors of judgment, as though gallows were misfiled paperwork. The ministers declare it hysteria, a fever of the age. They hang their heads, then lift them again to preach next Sunday, as if Salem never bled. The town heals, crops return, houses rise where jails once stank. The machines keep turning, oiled by your bones. And the Putnams? They have your land now, your orchard, your chickens, your woods, the fruits of God's justice ripening sweet in their hands. Salem moves on. Salem always moves on. Your story is nothing but a cautionary tale, a shadow in sermons, a setting for ghost literature, a ghost story mothers whisper to make their daughters behave. Whether you're a witch or a victim, there's no difference once your name is scratched into the record. And you're remembered only as a warning. Don't be strange. Don't be bold. Don't stand alone. Because in Salem, that's all it takes to hang.